We will immediately start our little cocktail awards party for awards we call the Laugh Out Loud Awards, or the Lolly, for people who over the last month or two have been submitting videos. I think we had over, what do we have, like 120 videos submitted in all different categories, so we're just going to have some fun. Now, why, I mentioned this at the top of the first panel, but the question is, why are we here? Well, he made me, was the first reason, but we're here because comedy is the light of the world. Everyone's got their own little flame inside, and without it, imagine how our lives would be if there weren't things throughout a day or entertainment that we create, which is the hardest type of, as David will tell you, the hardest type of stuff to create successfully. If it wasn't there to give us a smile a few times a day, imagine how sad and tough life would be. And it touches everyone the same way. Certain types of comedy is visceral, plays around the world and over the ages. We still have plays by Aristophanes, Shakespeare. This guy Chaplin's films, people laugh still at the same beat that they did 85 years ago. There's a movie called Airplane I hear people still laugh at from time to time. And more recently, Hangover. They tell us in this town, oh, comedy doesn't travel. How many times have we heard that, you guys, internationally? But this movie called Hangover didn't have any stars. It had 4 guys on a romp, and it did $500 million outside of America. So something must travel. Something must hit a visceral spot. People don't change. Only the technology does, and that's what we've been talking about all day. But it does come down to what are the visceral beats that make people smile, laugh, give them a little joy? Everyone from pros like the guys on this dais and out in the audience to, as we've seen in the last just 5 years, 13-year-old kids on skateboards and dweeby game players just talking about games have amassed 20, 30 million viewer audiences, bigger than any network show, and are selling their companies for millions of dollars. How did that happen? Has comedy changed that much? Are they still laughing at the same things, or does it all have to change and be new? So that's what we're going to explore today, the comedy of comedy. These last few panels have been more the business and the technology of it, but we're going to get down to the real comedy. And we have a pretty top panel here. Mr. Hal Rudnick, one of the top movers at UCB, who's in your short time has touched more shows online and on broadcast than most do in a lifetime. Mr. Jeff Dutton there for the Birthday Boys, one of the new guard. But does he learn from the old guard and adapt it for himself? We'll find out. Evan Sayet, one of the grand comics of our time, who's booked more often than, well, almost anyone. Joey Clift, who has helped drive this thing, who's another UCB, another content player, and Richelle Mies, who's just an extraordinary comic actress and also a writer and a producer, and has done a lot of things for Circle Laughs and UCB and many other places. So, the new kid here, who's done a few films in his time and made a few people laugh, David Zucker, who's glad to be here. All right, that's it. Cocktails, everyone. All right. Why are we here? Okay, because we all love to laugh, and we all know how friggin' hard it is to make people laugh on a consistent basis. And David, what is your expression that we all have heard 100 times but always rings true?
Early to bed, early to rise.
That one, yes, as you get older, this is true. About comedy and kids. Don't try.
Oh, yeah, kids don't try this at home?
Yes, that's the one.
And it doesn't have any
true.
meaning. Don't listen to him, yeah.
No, but he's right.
What was that about early to bed?
No, but yeah, that was
a
more
good one.
appropriate.
That was a good one.
But, just in my most arrogant moments, I say, kids don't try this at home.
As everyone in this room has gone through the same experience, I'm sure, of a friend, a relative, or some person you were introduced to go, oh, I've got the best idea for a movie or a joke or this, and you just know failure is soon to follow. And it's just because it's a tough business, not because they're dumb, but just it is hard.
But occasionally there's
yes,
good
and
idea.
occasionally. But as I was saying, comedy touches certain visceral points inside us and lasts forever and across all boundaries, all types of people and territories. And we have an example of one that some of you may have seen.
Police squad, follow that black car. The car, follow that car.
Right, Stephanie, check your mirror. Signal. Now pull into traffic. Try and ease off on the brake. Give it a little gas.
I know a shortcut. Turn left here. There he is.
Easy.
Turn right. Follow him to the right.
It's okay. Normally you would not be going 65 down the wrong way of a one-way street. Apply the brakes. Now put it in reverse.
You dumb broad.
Right, Stephanie, gently extend your arm. Extend your middle finger. Very good. Well done.
Now, the joke is, oh, let's have an action chase scene in a movie. And how many comedies have we gone to over the last 2 decades with big stars and big chase scenes, and you just sit there with a, But this was a smaller chase scene and had a twist to it.
Yeah, well, the key to doing these kind of movies is to, we set up a typical scene, and then, of course, we're spoofing it, but in fact, you played this particular scene, which is the driving instructor. We ever since then, we've called that principle that, you need the driving instructor. So what is it about, that one scene that gives it the comic twist? There was another scene in the same movie where it was a press conference given by the mayor, and Leslie Nielsen had a radio mic, and he goes into the bathroom, and everybody heard him peeing throughout the rest of the speech. So that was the driving instructor for that. So, and then another thing that we did was, no one in the scene was being funny or making funny faces. It was all in the writing. And so that's what I was talking about. Well, I talked about it a little earlier is, cutting out the middleman of the comedy actors. So in all my movies, we always cast actors rather than comics. It's just something of the style. Of course, in many other movies, it works just as well, using comic actors. But in this particular style, in each scene, we need, what is the one central comic twist, which in this case it's a driving instructor.
I also like that you don't need it shows a lot of confidence to not have a traditional straight man. I feel like a lot of people who would do a scene like that these days need somebody there for the audience to say, really, about every funny thing that happens.
Yeah, well, you kind of have to have the confidence behind your material to be able to cast it straight and play it straight. And I always tell the actors, don't play it straight, play it completely serious as if you don't know that you're in a comedy. So, and that's what we did in Airplane. We had to tell the actors, you have to pretend you were tricked into doing this. And everybody got it. If you go back and watch Airplane, Lloyd Bridges didn't get it 100%. He's there, from 80 to 90%, but he didn't completely commit to it as much as Leslie did and Robert Stack.
I heard he went really method, though, and he actually sniffed glue over the entire course of the...
I heard that, too, but that was my glue. So I knew that it was okay.
And Hal, you are a student of comedy.
Absolutely, from childhood till now. And I intend to be,
This is your last day?
oh no, I intend to be a lifelong learner.
Oh, okay. And you've gotten good grades?
You know what? I've gotten all grades across the board. Sometimes you got to get an F in order to learn.
That's true.
Yeah.
This is
no,
the hardest.
I bombed in front of 3,000 people doing stand-up comedy. You have to.
Is that total or at one time?
At one time. And, 3,000, but there will never be a 3,001st. No, it was at one time. And yeah, you must bomb. You must fail. You must, as a stand-up comedian or making content, as they say in the biz, eat shit on stage in order to learn from that and learn how to be funny and what's funny.
I remember the first time that I got on stage at Dangerfields, which is where I started out, and I would get there at 9 p.m. and watch all the other comedians, hoping one wouldn't show up, and they'd say, "Okay, kid, here's your break," and they finally put me on at 3 a.m. There were 4 couples, 2 of them were fighting, the other 2 couples were waiting for their spouses or spousei or whatever the plural is to come back from the bathroom. And this is a big place. And the spotlight is in my eyes. I can't see. They're fighting out there. And it's absolutely the worst experience in the history of the world. And I'm laughing to myself saying, this is how it's supposed to be. Your first time on stage, you're supposed to bomb. You know, and yeah, you learn from your mistakes, which is why, not just in our profession, but there's the expression, do your 10,000 hours. You know, because by the time you've done your 10,000 hours, nothing really surprises you. You know your material. And, you know, somebody once asked me, how do you have the confidence to go up there like that? And I say, you know what? I only go up with good material. And that wasn't true. I thought it was true until I learned and learned and learned and learned. But at a certain point, you learn, if they don't laugh at that point, when you've got it down, unless you screw it up, then you can go home and say, okay, it was a tough crowd. But yeah, you got to put in your 10,000 hours. It's not a joke.
Well, let's see a few of Hal's hours here.
I have no idea what they're going to show.
Oh, I'm sorry.
In a world full of movies and television, only one channel is keeping them honest. Screen Junkies, starring the hit show our subscribers truly love, and this other stuff we make when we have the time. Screen Junkies, subscribe.
So
There was one clip in there of me, my leg getting waxed, and that was me actually getting waxed by Paul Rudd and Leslie Mann. It was quite an experience for a young man.
okay, that's obviously a spoof and quick cuts and what we call super cuts, and plus with your acting. Is any of the classic comedy elements woven into that, or is this a whole new style and you found your way to it?
I mean, I feel like everyone who works at the Screen Junkies channel is absolutely inspired and has an appreciation for classic comedy, and you can say classic being from like going back to Mel Brooks or the Marx Brothers and beyond, or Saturday Night Live, and and now modern classics, Key and Peele, whatever there's so many influences, but yeah, you have to be students of it and have an appreciation in order to make something that translates and resonates.
Well, I think something that's great about a lot of what you do over at Screen Junkies is like you embrace kind of hot take culture, which is, it's like having strong opinions about things. And that's something that, like, back to the first stand-up comedians, however long ago that was, like, the stand-up comedian's job was to kind of say what was on people's minds that they couldn't really say. And, it's underlining the comedic truth with stuff like that. And that's, like, essentially what Honest Trailers does, is you just, like, you look at, things in entertainment, things in media, and just, like, give sort of the opinion that everybody has, but nobody, like, has the guts to say out loud. Yeah, absolutely. Speaking the truth, because there's I read a book in college called Truth in Comedy, which really and I feel like that is kind of a universal thing. If you say something true, the audience will respond to that. That's accessible to people if there's truth in a relationship. I'm sure, David, there's truth in you were saying you cast real actors. They give the moment some truth rather than mugging for the camera as much.
I mean, I'm sure you could talk.
Well, the material is set up just to be, so we're saying this isn't supposed to be funny. And in the early days, a lot of times it wasn't. But, we certainly set it up so that the jokes do the work, and that's actually the direction I most often give, is let the lines do the work.
But let me ask you a question, if I may. I know stand-up comedians are having a hard time on college campuses and elsewhere with PC, with political correctness, and trying to speak the truth. Have you run into problems?
Well, as far as political correctness, I feel that it can kill comedy, but I also feel like it's very necessary at times as well, because political correctness it evens the playing field, because a lot of times it was one group that was able to poke fun and make fun of anybody, anytime, without repercussion. And oftentimes to really offensive results, and marginalizing and making other groups feel less than. So when you incorporate political correctness into comedy, it levels the playing field. But it also shits on some funny jokes sometimes. And but I feel at the end of the day, it's necessary.
I mean, we always thought, what defined, what was funny was not political correctness, but just if it got a laugh. If you get a laugh, then you have hit something. Like you were saying, you've spoken some truths. And often, we found if we went too far, it would just, crickets when we'd cut it out, at least in the movies. So, but we always try to go up to the line and see how far we could push it.
Like, nice beaver.
Yeah, well, that could be considered, I don't know how that would be taken today, but,
Or I speak jive. Would that be allowed
well,
today?
yeah, no, I mean, it's hard to say how things would be taken today, but we show Airplane, all over the country, all the time, and that joke gets the same laugh it did, all those years ago. So I mean, it's still, somehow, it's not offensive. It isn't. It's only if you're a real racist would you think that.
And there have been some standards that people have reached for of comedians who did nothing but take it out to the edge and insult people.
Well, Rickles would, if you look at Rickles, because there was a lot of, he got a lot of publicity, of course. He only died like a month ago or something, or 2 months. But, and they show all of his own stuff. He was an equal opportunity offender.
But so was Lenny Bruce. I mean, Lenny Bruce really was intentionally offensive to show how ridiculous it is that anybody's offended by such things. And I don't know if Lenny Bruce could work.
That's true. And we have a couple of
Not
others
at
who
colleges.
are brilliant, but we don't know if they could work either now.
Y'all did some nasty-ass jokes on my ass, too. Oh, yeah, y'all didn't think I saw some of these motherfuckers. Since you love me so much. I remember this one. It strike the match like this. Say, what's that? Richard Pryor running down the street.
And even this dude. Does this work? Would Lenny Bruce work Rochelle and Joey anymore? If he was out there, would people boo him at college campuses, or would they get it? Mort Saul, all of them in that vein.
I mean, I think that it's possible to be offensive in comedy while not crossing the line. I think that if Lenny Bruce did his exact material right now, he's a product of the time that he was doing comedy. So I'm not sure if that would necessarily land like it does now. But I think that comedy is an art form that entirely builds off of itself. The people that are doing internet comedy now are doing things on the backs of, 1990s Conan or Tim and Eric or, Key and Peele or whatever. So because of that, if Lenny Bruce was around now, he wouldn't do his act from however many years ago. He would do a fresh new act that's like in reference to the present times.
Joey, I'd say people on the internet right now are doing things on the back of Keyboard Cat.
I mean, yeah, fair. Let's be honest. Yeah, like the Tron guy, that's the patron saint of internet comedy.
I mean, it's weird, like, the fact, like, Vine and 6-second videos and then Facebook Live and Instagram Live, that's having an effect because, like, you'll have a viral clip of some kid whacking his brother in the face with a plastic lightsaber, and, like, that clip is 50 million views later, you know? I mean, everybody knows, what is the one the British kid, Tommy bit me. Yeah, everybody knows that stupid clip that was just shot in someone's living room and uploaded, and, you know.
Right. I feel like that's like a difference between like what was maybe more successful in the 90s. Like you showed a Jim Carrey clip, and I feel like Jim Carrey's style of acting has become like a little bit passé just because it's very muggy and it's very like, look at me, I'm doing a joke. Whereas now, like, I think that the comedic actors that you see, it's like the Louis C.K.'s, where it's like they give like a fairly honest performance. And, it's kind of going back to what Zucker had with like Leslie Nielsen, where it's just like, it's sort of like let the joke be what gets the laugh as opposed to like making a weird noise or whatever.
Or like Flight of the Conchords is a good one for just super dry.
Yeah, it's like dry is
Super
sort of
dry dudes.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Speak loud.
I don't feel like I can let pass the fact that we're talking about political correctness and what we go over, and Richard Pryor with a table full of no one.
I'm a registered member of
Tehran,
the American Indian
get
Tribe.
your ass up here.
And I identify as black.
Vargas, come on. Where, Maddox here?
From people in
You
the
obviously
trenches.
weren't in our earlier panel.
Trenches. Vargas and I, for those who don't know, we're the token black people. Hi, everyone.
And you weren't up here before because I objected to it.
I so appreciate that comment. Is somebody scooting over? Do I get a name tag or something? on
Not
that?
even.
I'm joking. I'm not
We're
even
joking.
serious. I'm not-
Hal, sit.
No, they should be.
No, ladies first. Don't say show respect. When it comes to political correctness and comedy, it's very easy to watch Richard Pryor or say Lenny Bruce or speak of any of the comics that you guys, Louis C.K. But from someone who's in the trenches, it's very difficult to get your point across when you can't say what you want to say because you're afraid. And here's the thing, two things. First, just because you're offended doesn't mean you're right. Secondly, just because you're offensive doesn't mean you're right either. And that's the line. That's the line we have to be much more aware of, is that political correctness is both inhibitive and prohibitive. It doesn't allow for the artists to express themselves fluidly and freely. At the same time, it doesn't let the ideas you were saying that don't belong on campuses go on campuses. But where do we draw that line? That's where the trick comes in. Because when you were saying that there was generally one type of person going on and just being offensive and marginalizing different groups, white people were doing that, right? And that's where it comes. We don't like saying that, but that's what was happening. Well, now we have diverse people doing the same things to each other. So what it does do, however, is it makes you, the artist, you have to be better. Don't be bitter, be better. Write better jokes. Talk about better content. Talk about things that relate to everyone. But don't forget your own story. And that's where it lies, is where do you begin to tell your story and it doesn't oppress someone else's. So as a comedian, what we do is we all respect Don Rickles because he was equal opportunist. What we have to remember is to be respectful, and we are making fun with, not making fun of.
Lovely. Real quick, is this on even? I am David Zucker's illegitimate son. That's why.
That's actually
why
true.
I'm keeping this name real fast. Just the real quick point on political correctness. If we could talk about, if we just want to think back to Michael Richards for a second, when he had that moment of Yes, but at the factory. But I think Chris Rock put it best when he said his crime wasn't that he wasn't politically correct. His crime was that he wasn't funny. And it always comes down to that. And the whole speech about college campuses or whatever, those were comments made by Chris Rock, by Jerry Seinfeld, who have no business being at a college campus. If you want to know the truth, I mean, Tehran and myself, we're in the trenches. We're actual comedians. We performed, well, I mean, everybody up here is a comedian, but we're performing in the major clubs every week.
Every Monday and Thursday at the Laugh Factory,
Wednesday
whatever.
and Friday I'm at the Comedy Store. The Flappers on Sunday, whatever. But anyway, I'll be at the MGM Grand on September
They'll be there all
11th
week.
if you want to come down there.
Try the veal. Go ahead.
But the point being is, normally in a college campus, you know the work. Like as a comedian, you know which base works for you. You know that you can go to a college campus and make money as a non-famous comedian. And so you go there, and you know that you have to appease the Black Student Alliance. And you know you have to appease the Asian Pacific Alliance. And you have to appease the Young Republicans. You have all these diverse groups who have to like your act. That's why Carrot Top had such a big... He was the first comic to make over 6 figures on the college market, okay? And so anybody who's worked that market knows, hey, I can make 3 G's and fly out to Wisconsin. I know how to gauge my material and be funny without being offensive to all those groups. Chris Rock, Jerry Seinfeld are very spoiled and get away with saying whatever they want. And when they all of a sudden had to go play in that playing field, they were like, college campuses can't be politically correct. And for me, I was like, why are you slumming? Right? That's us for us. We're grunts out here. We're gladiators. This is how we feed our kids. And you're mad because you're not getting the love you always get. So it always comes down to like, if you're funny, you can make it work. And if you don't like that pool, don't jump in that pool. Go work on a cruise ship or somewhere else where somebody likes what you do.
I would just like to say to Chris Rock and Jerry Seinfeld, I don't even know that guy. I love you guys. You guys do whatever you want. I actually have a career, so.
There's nothing I can say to improve on what these two gentlemen said. I'm just an Armenian guy. But thank you for considering that ethnic enough to be up here. I appreciate it.
You guys are clapping and don't realize that Randy and David thought you were black too.
Well, I think we've got that. Did that answer your question, man?
Now you can leave, yes.
Yes. One thing, David, you've always said is when you're in comedy, you have to be a pirate. What do you mean by that?
Oh God, I can't remember what I said.
Well,
you know,
you have to go.
It's like, well, you know, that's a big question. You have to be more specific. It's just such a general
Well, you just
question. And when you answer
have to be
something,
angry.
it's like,
You have to, yeah.
well, as soon as you explain comedy, you become so unfunny. It's embarrassing. So that's like I refuse to answer.
Okay.
But you can't.
I'm quite
you
used to
can't
this. I get this
explain it.
every day. I've not answered.
Yeah, you have to ask me like, who played the role of the, you know, cop number 3 in Airplane? I don't know.
You don't know. Okay, I won't ask you that.
Yeah.
I don't ask you.
Try another question though. I'd be happy.
I will.
I'd be happy to answer a question.
Is there, Rochelle? You?
No,
are-
don't ask her.
I'm
Ask
gonna ask
me.
Rochelle because you don't even want to answer
That's
me.
true. Okay.
Is there-
Rochelle, what
what
does
is
it
the
mean?
range?
What do I mean by when I say we're pirates? What could I have possibly meant by that? It sounds like the dumbest assertion ever. So maybe you can explain that.
You have a hook for a hand
And one eye.
No, that's too literal.
All right. Well, but you still can go for it. You can be a little outrageous and out there.
I have a question.
Yes, Hal.
What movie was that Jim Carrey clip from where he's wearing that weird hat?
It was,
I didn't recognize
yeah,
that either.
2. Yeah, the second one.
What was it?
Yeah.
Oh, Ace
Yeah, When
Ventura
Nature Calls.
2,
We all remember that.
Nature Calls.
I didn't see it.
A cinematic classic.
Abby, we have.
Can we get someone in the audience to look up the Rotten Tomatoes score on Ace Ventura: Nature Calls?
Go ahead and play. So we have, but we do have people who still make a living pranking and being tough on others.
Hot dog? I'll do the New York. New York, yep. Cute. Does he know he could have that in liquid form? Oh. Why don't you push the hot dog shake on him that you're trying to get on the menu? Hot dog shake.
Did you know, sir, that you could have that complete meal in a liquid form?
Liquid form.
I'll just show you.
He puts in 2 hot dogs with the bun.
Oh!
Now, I'm not putting that taste to it. Oh, no, yeah, it's surprisingly, yeah.
Is it really? A little chili to make it a little more solidified, a little chili.
The boss.
Just for you.
Oh, great.
All right, now.
This is not gonna be good.
Look at the disgusting thing. Look at the crowd form.
It's a new smoothie. You hear fat ones. It's a new hot dog smoothie. You get the scoop of water. Yeah, it's like a juice thing.
hot dog.
No, you do it with a hot dog now.
Try this.
Oh, my God, cute.
Yeah, look at that.
Oh, my God.
Try that, sir. You want to try that?
No, you just take a sip.
Try that.
Q, a good chef always tastes what he makes before he serves it. Pour one for yourself too, bud. You've been working hard.
All right, a toast. Cheers, guys. Cheers.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Oh,
Delicious.
that was delicious. She's drinking it too.
Q, how is it?
It's not bad.
Okay.
New clips every week.
Where did that come from? Why is that funny?
It's funny because it makes you feel awkward, and a lot of comedy does that. It pushes you to that edge of awkwardness and normalcy, and it gives you a different perspective on something. It thinks out of the box, and that thinks out of the box. It's gross, it's disgusting, and it's happening to someone else. And that's the best part about comedy, you know?
And they're 4 white guys, not even a Persian in that.
Not a single Persian or black.
Yeah.
Well, where did they learn that kind of comedy from? I just wonder.
How is that significantly different than Candid Camera?
It's not.
Hey, it's Joe and
Hello, everybody. We're from Impractical Jokers.
That's right, and we're so sorry we couldn't be there today for this beautiful panel that David Zucker is hosting.
He is a good close friend of ours, one of our comedic idols.
Yes.
He's also right off camera telling us to say these things.
Yes, that's right. There he is. So now he's on video and he's here. But you know, was that good? Was that good enough? Because I can't stand you.
All right.
Well, they've done pretty. I think they just got renewed for their 8th season, so they're doing pretty well.
Yeah.
But what is it about people getting hurt, hit in the head, being pranked like that, that makes things funny? Because it's only been happening since the ancient Greeks.
Let's just to go off what he was saying. Like, I think that it's just the honesty of it. Like, we can see everybody looking disgusted. We can see, like, you know, somebody drinking this like thing that we know is gross, established by like everybody's reactions, and it's like, you know, there's like a truth to it of like we see the awkwardness of that person drinking a hot dog, you know?
I gotta wonder though, like, does anybody else get frustrated about like the line of what we're calling intentional versus like unintentional comedy? Like, so much of what we laugh at there is seeing real people react honestly, which is delightful. But it's different than like, I wrote a funny joke and I'm performing it, or I wrote a funny sketch and I'm like filming it, and like
Yeah, you can
the
absolutely-
meticulous work versus like just the spontaneity of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same argument with the reality show explosion. Just like put a bunch of people in a room and they start screaming at each other, and you have a hit show on your hands. Whereas,
And I do still like it. Like, it
Yeah.
works on me.
I'm drawn to it like a moth to flame. But yeah, but hold that up against a prestige drama or something on TV that gets canceled because, like, The Leftovers is one of the best shows on TV right now.
Hilarious.
So funny. But I mean, a show like that, the viewing audience was so small, it almost didn't even get renewed for its 2nd season, which was one of the best seasons of television in a long time. So yeah.
But here's the thing, we have to remember, you're looking at that, we're laughing, but it's comedy, sure, and it might even be good comedy, but good comedy will make you laugh. Great comedy makes you think. And so the greatest comedians that we have aren't people that necessarily, it's not the ha ha ha, it's the that's so true. And that's the biggest laugh you can possibly get. So if Aristotle or Plato or any of these philosophers were alive today, we don't have like necessarily the occupation philosopher, but we do have comedians. And these are the people that make you think about the world around you, life, love, more than anyone else. Louis C.K., Dave Chappelle, Chris Rock.
Well, yeah, I think it's the difference between like a slice of pizza and like a really, really nice steak. Like with with something like a reality TV thing or like a clickbait article or whatever, you sort of look at it and you don't really remember it afterwards.
Let's do the pizza steak analogy. Let's see where that was going to go.
Oh, okay. It was going
So
nowhere.
if you're hurting someone intentionally or not, but it's related to something that gives a truth and you learn that makes it funnier?
Not exactly. It's like if you get a paper cut, that's a tragedy. But if you are standing at the corner before you get a paper cut and someone trips, falls, gets hit by a bus, flips in the air, and then their toupee falls off, that's comedy.
Or if you're satirizing something where you've got an example like that and that's in the news?
Well,
like this?
Well.
No, I paid for this ticket. I'm not going anywhere.
As I said, you need to vacate the plane immediately.
Are you seeing this right now? Is this
Sir,
really
it's Central Standard Time. I need you to follow my directions.
Somebody help me!
FAA regulations require me to have you vacate the plane immediately.
Stop!
It's only booked and you need to leave the plane. I have no other choice but to call the first officer.
What?
Sir, we are booked. Sir, that's not the distance.
Sir, I do need you to comply or we will have to forcibly remove you from the plane. I am authorized to offer you 25,000 sky
Sir,
flights
this is a fresh
for any
You know they stole that from David Zucker, right? You don't know they did. Okay.
Well, actually, he was the one who directed it, so he stole from himself. But this is a lot of the comedy on the internet now, right? Taking things that are the hot button news items and turning them into something that, you satire or spoof. Is this something, Rochelle, you do this almost every day. Is that something that's necessary in today's digital world, that, the longer pieces don't work as well as maybe these short things because of the attention spans of some millennials I know who are related to me?
I don't think it's necessarily the length, but it's just like shareability. Like the airplane stuff, literally everybody is talking about it and everybody's sharing an article. And like, did you see that guy get dragged down the aisle? If everybody in the whole country is talking about something, if you make a video about it, like they're going to want to share that and they're going to be like, wow, they blew the situation out of the water. And so it's just kind of like, it's really easy fishing, I guess, when it's current news. I don't think it's better or worse than like a long form comedy piece.
Evan,
Yeah,
you didn't
I-
have short stuff in
Yeah,
when you're coming up, but does it play for you?
I think what's really changed with the democratization of production, that anybody now with a cell phone, anybody now who can actually produce something, is it went from it was hard to get something made to now it's easy to get something made, it's hard to get something seen. How do you stand out amongst all these various things? And there's a plus when you have the trajectory of the news story is already out there. When somebody comes across it, there's a better chance that it's going to catch on and go viral because it's in the news. In general, I think almost anything will work, long form, short form, just as it always did. The question is, how do you get known? And that's a lot of work. It takes branding yourself, it creating a platform for yourself where people trust you and come to see you. I mean, I have a small niche. I have an expression for myself. I'm extremely well known by anybody who knows who I am. And really, this day and age, that's what you need is a loyal following. And then whatever you put up, so long as you remain true and it's good, you're going to build your following. And I think that's really the difficult part now, is how to stand out. And that's a lot of work.
And so is it does it help comedy be more successful in the short form if you link what you're doing to something that, one, may be in the news, or two, may be a very familiar brand in the largest sense of something familiar?
Well, you're going to be piggybacking off of the success or the notoriety of that other story.
And Joey, you've done a lot of this kind of stuff.
Yeah, you have to like focus on the niche of like who you think is going to share the thing. So, like a phrase that I've often heard is like, what message board is going to share this, or like what subreddit's going to like flip out over this. So, you know, like right now everybody's talking about like, you know, airplane stuff. So this is a good thing because like this is just what is on the front page of Reddit now. So you make something that's like a play off of that, and it's like going to do well by virtue of that. Or like you have to make something that's unusual enough to share. So I think that a lot of what Super Deluxe is doing right now is like, it kind of fits into that area, or like Lasagna Cat, if any of you guys have heard of that. Yeah. Yeah, oh, really? Oh, you haven't heard of Lasagna Cat? But like, yeah, you've got to like I have a podcast called 25 Minutes of Silence. The premise is that a guest and I just sit in silence for 25 minutes. And like, I work really hard. I got like Ken Bone to be on it. I got like lead singer of the President of the United States of America on it. I got like Emmy Award winning writers. And it's like noteworthy because it's weird. And like, I think that that's kind of what you got to do on the internet is like, see what everybody else is doing and do a different thing, and people will share it if you aren't doing another thing that's the same thing that everybody else is doing.
My problem with that is simply this. I understand relevancy is something's relevant, but comedy is supposed to be sincere. So even if it's a parody, even if it's mockery, whatever it is, it's still sincere. It's something you really think. So, well, people, for example, I don't wear the bathrobe because I want to be interesting. I wear the bathrobe because I want to be comfortable, you know? And it's just who I am. I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable. I also have a master's in economics and a Georgetown law degree. I'm comfortable, you know? And I'm in a bathrobe, and I'm breaking the mold because I want to, not because I'm trying to be heard.
Oh yeah, I mean that's what I meant by like look what everybody else is doing and do the opposite. It's not necessarily like, oh, I'm going to try to do a weird thing. It's just like do something that you feel is honestly you, and by virtue of that, you'll at least like yourself by putting it out there, you know? And if it does well, if it doesn't well, it kind of doesn't matter if you're proud of it.
But combining a brand with something in the news is an eye catcher, isn't it? Isn't that how you get the eyeballs at least to click for the first 10 or 20 seconds that you want for your Facebook total or YouTube? For instance, during this last fall with the election and all the debates, we ran several pieces that were in the news.
I want to welcome you to the first presidential debate. This debate is sponsored by...
I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
That goes against everything. We stand for it.
Bye.
How are you?
Donald, it's good to be with you.
I'm really honored. Let's debate. I want to make America great again.
Well, Donald, I know you didn't pay any federal income tax.
No, if you're wrong. I will release my tax returns against my lawyer's wishes.
They don't give you the tax rate. They don't give you all the details. Now, having said all this, why aren't I 50 points ahead?
Because you're wrong. Is it President Obama's fault? Is it President Obama's fault? Is it President Obama's fault?
There are
Is it President Obama's fault?
even announced. Donald, I know you live in your own reality, but that is not the fact. Okay.
Your great prince are no match for my Trump towers.
I really regret doing this.
You can't beat me. I don't know what I said. I don't remember. I don't remember. Oh, maybe that's what I said. I need water. Help me. I need water. Help. You're fired.
Yeah.
Anybody else wish that happened?
Well, play the rest of it.
President, one of these two shall be fucked. We are.
Well, that was the only political statement there. But David, when we do these things and match things up, it's on several levels instead of just one.
Well, actually,
thing.
I mean, the several level stuff. I think we did a bit on Alexa versus
which we're
Siri.
going to show now.
Oh, okay. Well, but this was not so much. This was clever, and it was a way to do the the election stuff. It was hard to do. I think it's difficult to do Hillary and Trump bits because you know, they're already a joke. So it's hard to make it funny. And I remember, you know, decades and decades ago, it was popular in the early 70s to make Nixon jokes. But our group, you know, we had a small theater called Kentucky Fried Theater, and we didn't do those jokes because it was so easy. It was just too easy. So we just stayed away from it. But this was a kind of a way, you know, there's this thing called Jib Jab, which I don't think is all that funny. And this is kind of like that. But it's clever.
Somebody from Jib Jab just left the room.
And here's a way to meld up both a brand and something in the news.
Yeah.
Siri, what's the weather like today?
I don't know.
Siri, what's the weather like today?
Why don't you ask Alexa, you cheating piece of shit?
Shut up, you dumb Steve Jobs. Seriously? Alexa, Siri, you guys gotta stop this. I like having both of you around, okay?
You don't need her. I can shop. I can read texts. I can play Jeopardy with you. Wow. That's super useful.
Enough. If you two are gonna continue to be so jealous, then I am gonna get rid of you both. And I'll just go back to Googling stuff.
You know you're too lazy for that. You're not even wearing pants. I'm out of here.
Then why aren't you going anywhere?
I remembered I don't have free will.
Is now gonna be like a really awkward moment for me to introduce the new Samsung assistant. Hey, Bigsby!
Hey, I'm the new Samsung Intelligent Assistant. I understand context.
Yeah.
You're a real dick, Dan.
Dry gas munching piece of shit.
And that was Rochelle Beasley. There's an example, right? Of
Well, it's on two levels. It's, you know, it was the, you know, the social interaction, but it was all put in the context of Siri versus Alexa, which I think that's what made it funny.
Instead of just two girls arguing at a guy.
Right, which was, you know, funny on one level, but this kind of brought it up. Yeah.
And is this what plays best, Hal, on the internet, or do you need this complexity? Sometimes, obviously, "Ow, Charlie, you bit me" works, but for a sketch, do you need this a little more sophistication?
Yeah, you need something unusual. Yeah, if it was just a guy with his two devices, like there's nothing to that. So you absolutely need some kind of angle. Jeff, you've written a lot of sketches.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think you need that stuff. Yeah, I'm on board for all that. Yeah.
Wish I thought of.
By the way, Ace Ventura: Nature Calls 33% on Rotten Tomatoes.
That was fast.
And what is the biggest obstacle today for young digital creators who want to get in the business? Because like Evan said,
controls.
Yes, that's true. Evan said it's very democratized. Anyone with a cell phone is now a publisher and a broadcaster with a Facebook Live.
And a distributor.
And a distributor. So what is the biggest obstacle and what's the biggest leverage and benefit?
I'd say lack of eyeballs, we could probably all agree. Or like lack of attention span for those eyeballs.
Mm-hmm.
Speak for yourself. Anybody?
Yeah.
Anybody? I'm just going to go into the table.
These guys got views.
Yeah, and there's just so much competition. There's so many. There's so many portals and channels, and yeah, so it's easy to get lost in that sea of things.
So is it that make it even more important to you do your own clever twist of something that's already a well-known trope or something familiar?
Well, you need your own clever twist, but you also need, and I think the last panel talked about it a lot as well, your way to stand out or be seen, or to have the proper search terms, or to get on a regular upload schedule. You need to handle the business of it just to get seen. Sometimes the funniest thing in the world will just lay in obscurity.
Well, we have an example here of a clever twist on an internet trope.
You gotta try using Bumble at Coachella. It's just way better. I'm saying Black Lives Matter, but all lives matter too.
So that was more than 2 levels. That was like 4 levels: an internet trope and a douchey guy and all the different memes that are out there, cleverly put into a form that we've seen in Women's Wear Daily for, 80 years, the evolution, or 100 years up. Is this something that you would focus on to do as a regular series, or do you think it's just lightning in a bottle? And Jeff?
Oh, you're asking me?
Yeah, why not?
My show, Birthday Boys, I'm one of 7. I can't really call it my show. We were really anti-topical, and it hurt us badly. Like the network was always sort of like, oh, we're hearing about like twerking. Can you guys do like a twerking thing? And we just was like, no, you just have the wrong guys for that. Like, and it just felt inauthentic to us, I think. Also, like we were like college friends, so we were 7 white dudes, so we didn't really feel like we had too many takes on like the cultural conversations that were happening at the time.
Smart.
Thanks, man. But so we just kind of stuck to what we thought was bizarre. And yeah, you do need existing forms, like people know what trailers are and they know how those are supposed to flow. So you're piggybacking on known things. But yeah, I'm not really the topical guy here. You might want to ask somebody else.
Well, Hal, you do a ton of stuff.
I think that really worked because we were talking about truth. We've hit that several times, and we've seen the guys in that video, either like archetypal movies from the 80s, like thinking of like, that guy played like a James Spader classic douchebag, and there were so many identifiable images. So because we could connect with that truth, I'm like, oh, that's clever. I like that because it was accessible in that way.
And we were talking about political correctness earlier. Like, I think it's important to kind of punch up. So it's like, yeah, okay, we can make fun of like douchebags because they've been on top of the world forever. You know what I mean? But like maybe other people we lay off of.
But yeah, I doubt that like a dude with a man bung is going to see that video and be like, wait a second.
You'd be surprised.
Also,
it's about me.
People tend to see that stuff and think like that douchebag actually watching that video doesn't think it's about him.
Oh yeah, he's just like, he doesn't see it.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's blissful to be an ignorant douchebag.
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, I feel like a lot of the rise of Seth Meyers and Colbert has been that they're comedians with clear opinions, whereas Fallon is somebody that like tries to be as milquetoast as possible. Like people, I think, like to watch late night and kind of agree with the person that they're watching. Like they like to watch Colbert or like John Oliver and say like, oh, he's saying what I want to say, but I'm not like eloquent enough to say it. Like he kind of got my thoughts out for me, and that's like. Fallon's not that guy. He's the carpool karaoke. No, he's not the carpool karaoke. He's the lip sync battle guy. Like
the mess with Trump's hair guy.
Yeah, that fun bit. That thing we all loved.
Late night has morphed from them seeing themselves as entertainers, which Johnny Carson did, which Jay Leno did, which Jimmy Fallon does. That's his primary job, is to entertain. Whereas now it's become a political forum. And if you agree with him, wonderful, then you watch him in late night. But the idea of just somebody who you go to bed with at night just for a couple of laughs, personally, I'd rather get my news from the news and my entertainment from my entertainers. But it's just not the job any longer, I guess. It just seems that from Letterman to Oliver to a show I used to write, Politically Incorrect, which is now Real Time. It's just the comedians are news sources and are politicians.
But isn't what we sometimes look for, besides superheroes at night, which I've had that fantasy,
Tell
is
me
something-
more.
Yes.
Whoa, let's not bury the lead.
They never seem to sleep. You notice Spider-Man, Batman, they're always up all night. So, it's company. But don't you just want to laugh once in a while? I mean, the older folks here, some of us gray folks here, actually used to every day open this thing that they called a newspaper. It was printed up. But every day, the first thing you do, you look at the sports team, and then you'd go to your favorite strip, Doonesbury, Peanuts, or whatever, right?
But today, I'll scroll through my feed and look for that meme that's, going to give me some, or look
That's
for,
right.
oh,
But
yeah,
is
what
the
do I wanna
little
retweet? 'Cause
is
it's
the
funny.
little pop of just something that makes you smile, that's not elaborate, is that something that people just viscerally crave, whether it's late night or early morning or any time of the day?
I feel like it's what you were talking about earlier about the difference between like a prank show and something that like really sticks with you and makes you think. And I think that's what I think John Oliver is going for, is he's trying to be that, whereas Fallon is trying to be just like Keyboard Cat, where it's like, oh, you kind of look at it and you smile and that's it.
Well, that little visceral spark that happened 3,000 years ago or just last night is something that we believe people look for. We call them vid tunes. Well, it's not up there with Charlie, You Bit My Finger, but I think, what is that, over 14 million views now? So obviously it gave someone a little spark and a smile, just this little simple 35-second. But it's hard to come up with a clever idea for 35 seconds, isn't it, Dave? Whether it's a 90-minute movie or 35 seconds, it's just you need that spark and a special little niche.
All comes down to the driving instructor. Once you have a driving instructor, then it writes itself.
The jokes do write themselves.
Like this bit.
All right. Well, we've come
Genius.
to the end of the panel, so we can have our
Can't believe
cocktail
I
and
wrote
award
that.
show. But how about a word from everyone down the line from, what would you like to talk about? How about your favorite piece of comedy?
Go ahead, Tron. You start down there.
The question was my favorite piece of comedy? Yeah. My favorite piece of comedy is my show every Monday and Thursday at the Laugh Factory in West Hollywood, 10 p.m. You guys are all more than invited. Find me on social media at I am Tehran. I will put you on the guest list.
Rochelle?
I guess right now, like the thing most recently that I was just blown away by was movie Get Out.
The correct answer was Mondays and Thursdays.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, I think Get Out's really good. I would say that for me, I'm going to do what you did. I've got a show the May 31st at UCB Sunset called Chats on Cats, the late night talk show for people who love cats. Also, check him out every Monday at the Laugh Factory. It's Monday and Thursday. Laugh Factory at 10 p.m. Good show. Check it out.
How do you answer that question? It depends on the day, it depends on the mood, it depends on, there are just some classic bits that will always stick with me. Of course, anything David Zucker does. But when I was very, very, very first starting out, going back to a story about Dangerfields, the rule was in order to get on the stage there, you had to have 5 minutes of material. I only had 2.5 at that point. So I would say to the audience, listen, I didn't write this next bit. It actually belongs to Woody Allen, but I think it's kind of funny and I'd like to share it with you. And yeah, I mean, I was an idiot. So what do you want? I was a kid. But I did the Moose routine, and to this day, the Moose routine is just so absurd. If you don't know Woody Allen stand up, just go back and watch it, and you see, because not a lot of people know Woody was a stand up. But his timing is the absurdity of it, the historical continuity from earlier that a lot of the next generation also interpreted in their own way. So if you don't know Woody Allen stand up, give that a shot.
After my long tirade against unintentional comedy, I think the funniest thing, second for second, I've seen is a YouTube video called Nice Ron. Has anyone seen Nice Ron?
No.
I'm not even going to explain it. It's 5 seconds. It's worth the search. Check it out.
I think beyond anything else, I love Impractical Jokers. I think those guys are they're the funniest thing out there, and not just because I know them, but I can literally only watch like 20 minutes at a time, and I'm literally choking. It's funnier on the show if you
should sit up and watch it
than watching it in here, and they're my favorites. I like those guys.
I mean, if I have to pick one, I'm probably gonna have to say Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls. Yeah, Ace Ventura 2: When Nature Calls. But also, I feel like you have like we all got into comedy for some reason, and I remember one major moment having laughed and destroyed myself laughing was coming out of the theater having seen Naked Gun. I was just, oh my fucking God, that was insane. And then watching so much of the Zucker brothers and so you have influential stuff, and so it's too hard a question to answer, but I'll also plug, I'm going to be on the upcoming season of America's Got Talent. Thanks. Playing a comedy character that I created at the UCB Theater called, his name's Eric Jennifer, and he's the good boy of comedy.
Hilarious.
And you can follow Eric Jennifer on Twitter at EricJennifer007. He's like a 40-year-old guy who lives at home with his mom in Gardena, and he practices stand-up comedy when he's at the laundromat and on the bus. And his mom is, she's an interesting, she's like this chain-smoking, hard-drinking woman that he lives with. And please check that out on America's Got Talent. Eric Jennifer at EricJennifer007 and at Hal Rudnick on Twitter. Thanks, guys.
Just have to say, as a kid, me and my brother didn't get along. He's 8 years older than me. I was born, and I took away being the baby, and I'm more charming and better looking. Anyway, didn't like me, but we went and saw Airplane and got along as a kids and wasn't beating on me. So always loved that. Watch a show called Man Seeking Woman right now. If you haven't seen it, how brilliant that show is, right? But I work for the troops. That's my passion, is what I do. I've toured over 35 countries entertaining the U.S. troops. I say over because because Guam and Puerto Rico don't count, so I say over 35. But anyway, my passion right now, my passion thing that I love is we toured in Europe in 2015 and shot 140 hours worth of footage right now. And so we're shopping it out. Keep an eye out for it. It's going to come together soon. If anybody's interested and wants to hook me up and help me out, come give me a card, is all I'm saying. But I really appreciate even just the time to come up here and being thrown up on the panel real quick is a beautiful thing. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate that.
Mondays and Thursdays, 10 p.m. Before we go, I do want to just say something really quick.
Mondays and Thursdays, the Laugh Factory.
I was actually going to say that to a point that someone made about why we want to watch politics in the shows is because as millennials, it's interesting because politics and government tend to use the truth to spread lies. And then we find that comedy and art and entertainment uses lies to tell the truth. And that's why we find such greatness in our comedy. And then we can find that Mondays and Thursdays, 10 p.m. at the Laugh Factory.
Do we have one more question? We have time for one more question. Yes, Ryan.
Yeah, okay, I'm a pirate. Fine.
All right, that's a planned question if I ever heard one. Does anyone have their own question of it? If not, yes, ma'am, in the back. You're gonna have to speak way up.
Well, let me correct a thought that you said you go to the comedy club and hear these things. And the comedy club's not going to you. And the thing about it is, the concept of free speech is if you don't believe in free speech for the people you disdain, you don't believe in freedom of speech. So, thank you. I understand.
And I agree. Like that being said, to like her point, I think it also coming to a more sex-positive point of view sometimes, and there's some things that are very old school, especially in the treatment of women, like using words like that, like, I mean, I'm not saying like you can't use the word pussy, but let's use it in a sex-positive way, and let's not put women down.
Sure, but and I understand that, and I'm not saying that you should. Sure. The way you alleviate that is don't support those comedians. So every day when you use, we all talked about the big vote and how we voted. No, we vote every day. We use our dollars. If you don't use your dollars to support it, it will naturally go away. It will change the way of thinking. When I was a kid, I'm serious. I would be in class and a teacher would talk to me and I'd get an answer wrong and be like, "What, are you retarded?" Like that happened in class. Right? Now, we don't say that word anymore because people have said, we come together and we don't say this word. We don't use words that are derogative against, for example, homosexuals. We don't use these words. We can do that as a people. It's a choice. But at the same time, when you choose to go and support those, then that's where that comes from.
If I can give this to you historically, look at Richard Pryor. When Richard Pryor came up, all black comedians were Bill Cosby.
Yes.
They were all very clean because Bill was the only black comic who was a Main Street comic making a living. Richard came up and, like Lenny Bruce, broke the mold. Right now we have, I would say, women as well propagating what you were talking against in some ways. You have, and they're hysterical comedians, but you have Amy Schumer, you have Chelsea Handler. Those are the top paid female comedians right now. So everyone is emulating it. It's what you're going to see in the club until that breakthrough artist does like Richard Pryor and is taking it from a clean perspective, maybe a more intelligent perspective to something you would more prefer.
Yeah.
Who breaks that mold, and that's when it's going to tide. It's an ebb and flow in comedy of where the voice is, and that's when you're going to see what you want that change
I would just also like to say Chelsea Handler and Amy Schumer, I have no idea who that guy is. Like, can you stop throwing names out there? I work with these people.
I think I'm less of a stand-up and more of like a writer, but being in writers' rooms, like now if somebody says a misogynistic joke, it's either met with crickets or immediately after they leave, it's like, what's that person's deal? It's sort of just like as millennials kind of get in more positions of creativity, we're aware that like being misogynist is shitty, so we're not doing it as much.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I agree with that guy.
And we
who
worked
didn't use
hard.
names.
We worked hard to end on an up note here. But one thing we did want to do that is an up note is, as you know, we're going to begin our cocktail awards party. The first annual Laugh Out Loud Awards, the Lollies. And to kick it off, we want to honor Hal for all of his work in UCB and all the other programs in comedy that he's done with the Circa Laughs Board of Governors Special Lolly Award for High Achievement in Comedy. For all of your UC, please stand up. Hal, I'm sorry.
Who might actually won?
This is going to Vargas. I'm sorry. Vargas is one of the great achievements in comedy.
Did you just do La La Land? Was that what you were trying to do? I got La La Landed, man. I'd like to thank everybody who made this happen.
Thank you very much, panel. Stick around. The cocktails are coming, and we're going to start to show some videos and awards.
Where'd he go?